What piece of advice would you give to someone who's looking to catalyze a culture shift within their organization? Where could they start? What's one piece to focus on?
In the marketing business, we have what's called a creative brief. So we start with a brief. It's like, what are we trying to achieve? How do we want to achieve it? There's a brief. And to me, the brief is the story. And starting with that story, again, story is the pathway to meaning. And if you want people to enroll in this culture change, you have to show why this change is going to be meaningful to them. Why they should pay attention to it, why they should start behaving differently, or why they should continue doing things that they're already doing. So I believe it's about really grounding yourself in that shared story. Now, one of my learnings, having worked on the company that you referenced, is that HR people sometimes, they aren't the ones who own storytelling within an organization. And so what we've learned working with organizations is enroll your storytellers, enroll your experience builders, and where they come from a lot of times are your marketing teams, your comms teams, they come from your customer experience teams. These are the people that know how to build experiences and tell stories. And when you bring and merge HR with these very engaging disciplines, or disciplines that really foster engagement, that really, I think, is a win-win. So I would encourage people to maybe talk to internal disciplines that you maybe haven't, and roll them into your HR efforts and your culture building efforts.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Kevin. And I think we definitely saw that in this particular effort, that it made a real difference to have this different type of language and way of speaking and a connection to the customer in particular, and infusing that around our employees as internal customers, and being able to apply some of that same philosophy and the storytelling we have from a market-based perspective to be able to treat our employees, which really are kind of some of our most important customers as well.
Yeah, I think what I would add there too is with some of our other clients, for instance, a leading professional services firm, they've been going through an ongoing change with some of their human capital processes, and where they've been most successful is in acknowledging that the culture change that they'll need to kind of energize some of these human capital processes that they're looking to improve the performance of requires acknowledgement that the change is a journey, and so kind of being clear and transparent about where you are in that journey. One kind of tactic that we've seen to be effective in our work is having the folks who are involved with the change effort use the phrase, "we are at our best when," and kind of talking to, we're not always going to be at our best, but we are being able to describe we're at our best when our teams are collaborating, when there is open lines of communication, when we're having that continual feedback loop, and using that and recognizing that we're building and growing upon it.
That's good. And I can see that connecting back with that aspirational culture piece too, that you use those examples of we are at our best when as what we want to achieve in the future and where we want to be on an everyday basis rather than an exception.
And I think the underlying message is we need you. We need you, our employees. Without you, we cannot do this. And so doesn't everyone want to be needed? I mean, and so to me, it's like, what is your role in this change? We need you to have that, So this is where our vision is, this is where we're heading, and help us get there, help us get there.
So building on that, Karen asked a question around, we've talked a lot about the role of leadership, but what else can employees do who may not be in that leadership role in order to help drive culture change?
I think peer-to-peer recognition is probably one of the most powerful ways they can participate, is to look at your other fellow employees and say, you are doing a great job. You made my job easier. I'm celebrating how you're doing for me today, or you made my moment exceptional. I think peer-to-peer recognition, that's the first place it starts, right? I mean, it's recognizing other people who are doing a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think something else that can help is leveraging technology. So many organizations today have enterprise communication platforms, be it Yammer or things along those lines, where employees now have a voice, and more leadership of organizations are paying attention to the chatter that is going on those different kind of communication vehicles and platforms. And so I think leveraging the peer-to-peer piece, Kevin, that you were speaking of, having employees take advantage of this technology and being able to share their voice with each other and with the leaders of the organization. It's no longer, we're not in a world where it's all just top down. There's the bottom up, the top down, and kind of where the rubber meets the road in the middle is kind of the crux of it all.
it's a really big part of our organization, and it's one of our core values is courage. And I think people have to have courage to be vulnerable, to speak up, to tell their leaders that this is unacceptable, and allow your voice to be heard. So chat. I would say keep it internal. I wouldn't be going out to places and maybe not doing that as an employee, but use things like Chatter and other places, whatever your tools are for speaking up, make sure your voice is heard and have the courage to do that. And one of my greatest teachers, Gandhi, says, be the change you want to see in the world. So if you are things about your culture that you don't like, be the change agent. Be the person who stands up and say, you know what, we're not collaborating at the level that we say we're supposed to be. How can I help that? How can we as a team start collaborating better, start offering up suggestions and talking and with your fellow employees, and just have courage. Have courage.
Great. And I think particularly when recognizing courage is not just a key core value of some organizations, but a critical enabler to moving forward change, and that we don't always have to look just in a corporate environment as far as looking for leaders that have set the tone and the pace. I mean, I think Gandhi is certainly a great one as far as being able to have the courage, to do what was right and move the movement forward.
There's a great teacher, her name is Margaret Wheatley. I don't know if you know her. Turning to One Another is a book that I sit on my shelf. I constantly refer back to it. And she's quoted as saying that the world changes when everyday people gather around a table and begin to share their stories. And what happens is they start to see their similarities and their differences, but they start to really see that what they share, and they really start to shape new stories. And then, and that idea, as she would go on to say, is at the basis of all social change. So whether it was the change in India with Gandhi, or the change in Liberia with Lima Gabawi, who's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, or our own country here in the US, if you look at King, or you look at the suffrages, the suffragists who fought for women's right to vote, they all at some place gathered around and started talking about their stories, what they were thinking, and that's what really motivated them to make a better world for themselves. Yeah.